And it always has to do with our immediate surroundings. This is part of what he does. Again, he misquotes, not only does he take beloved out, but he misquotes Psalm 91, which we're going to read in a little while. So Jesus quotes Deuteronomy, Moses. And it's almost like the enemy again is, oh, so you want to talk about Moses. So he quotes Psalm 91, which is the psalm that Moses wrote. So he goes to Moses. He goes to Scripture. It sounds right in a certain respect. I mean, when you read it, when you read what he said, it just sounds so right. But again, he's eliminated and twisted Psalm 91. And when we read it, you'll see. The main thing that he's messed up is that in Psalm 91, it's very clear. It says he, referring to God, will give his charge. In other words, God is in charge, and he will say what to do. He'll say whether to jump and commission his angels to come and get you. It's his call, not yours. He gives his angels charge, not you. But he conveniently eliminates that. The whole context of Psalm 91, as we're going to read it, is one of, as you walk through this life, earth is a tough neighborhood. But you don't need to worry, because no matter where you are, when you're dwelling in the secret place, under the shadow of the Almighty, under the shadow of his wings, no evil can befall you, these kinds of things. And if something does come at you, he'll deliver you. He'll give his angels charge to take care of you. It's the most beautiful psalm that he's twisting around to make it sound like God owes you this, so you can do anything. Now I'm telling you, there's Christians walking around the earth today who think more like Satan in this passage than like what Psalm 91 actually says, that they can do whatever they want. I've got a good dad and he'll pick up the pieces. Be careful. That's called testing God, which is what Jesus says. Be careful. They tested him in the wilderness, and it wasn't a good scene. Testing God is not good. Matthew 27:40 is a similar kind of passage. The devil takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple and says, why don't you throw yourself down? And Mary, what you were just saying is really what it's about. Throw yourself down to prove that you are who you say you are. Prove it. In Matthew 27, would you read verse 40?
And saying, you who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself, if you are the Son of God. Come down from the cross.
If you are the Son of God. Gee, that sounds familiar. If you are the Son of God, what? Cast yourself down. Throw yourself down. If you are the Son, throw yourself down. It's interesting that that word down in the Greek, again, means to end up in a lower position. So the temptation that sounds so good, so right, God will take care of you. Show that, this is all true. Come off the cross. Come down. Is really a way of saying, if you do that, you're going to end up in an inferior position. Where you are now, if you're on the cross, if you're suffering, we don't like suffering. But God is saying, it's not a bad place to be. If you try to get off or get down or go someplace else, you end up in an inferior position. And I guarantee you, if he throws himself off the temple, he is surely to end up on the temple floor in a much worse position. Splat. This whole thing about the temple and throwing yourself down and all that, it has to do, obviously, with a sign. You remember what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 1 and 2? The Jews seek a sign, a demonstration of the power of God. The Greeks aren't interested. Greeks are into wisdom. And then Paul calls Jesus the wisdom and the power of God, but not for the same reasons that we think. This whole thing of throwing yourself off the temple is very common. Jewish people would have a much better understanding of this than we would. This was ongoing for them. Somebody would come and announce that they were Messiah or whatever. And one of two things would generally happen. Either they would test the person who was saying they were the Messiah, or the Messiah, without being pushed to a test, would throw themselves in harm's way to prove that they were the Messiah. So this idea of doing something dangerous, being tested under dangerous conditions and everything, throwing yourself in harm's way, this scene that's happening with the second temptation was kind of like natural from a Jewish perspective. Of course this is what happened. But this is not the way Satan's really presenting it. He's presenting it as, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself off the temple and the angels will come and catch you and everybody will see that you are who you say you are. And it sounds in some respects like a reasonable thought. The thing is, Jesus doesn't just do things like he said in the first temptation. Not my will be done, but thy will be done. And Jesus recognizes very clearly what is going on. I said that each time I'm going to try to do some layers of lessons that I hope will help all of us. The temptation, acceptance, approval, and attention of others. There is a temptation. We so desperately want to be accepted by others and approved by others, put ourselves as attention. I don't know how many people I have talked with over the years that struggle with this, a very low self-esteem, that so want to be accepted, they would do most anything. There are a lot of people in compromised positions around the world because they struggle with this area. If we don't, we could have a hard time relating to someone who does. But Jesus is walking in a place that says, listen, my Father loves me. And he said, I am well pleasing to him. And Jesus shows us in this second temptation that there could be a temptation to be loved by people more than God. In other words, he's on the temple. I don't know if there was a crowd of people already gathered. I don't know. But I mean, he's like the center of attention. And man, to just throw myself off. And what a crowd pleaser that is, Nowadays, if you hit the ground, they like it too, because of the way our entertainment industry has gone. Some people would like it even more. But this whole idea of starving so much for the acceptance, the affection, the approval, the attention of others, that's a temptation to do most anything. And Jesus is saying, but you are well pleasing to the Father. You don't have to do anything. You are well pleasing to him. And if you're not to somebody else and they don't like you or whatever, they're missing the grand opportunity in life to know you and to love you. They're missing out, not you. You've got the love of the Father in your life, on you, and you are pleasing in his sight. So part of the layers of lessons here is recognizing that wanting to be accepted, approved, all of that, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is if we take the enemy's advice how to do that and forget that we don't have to do anything. We are always pleasing in his sight because we are beloved sons. That's the message. We are beloved sons. We are loved of our Father, not by what we do, but by who he is. He loves us. A temptation, being a sign instead of a son. It's not going to sound very nice the way I say it, but I hope you'll appreciate and be able to understand the way I'm going to say this. That there are some people that love ministry and mission more than God. I'm telling you, there are people that would do almost anything for give me a ministry. They love their ministry. They got to do their ministry. It could be any aspect of it. It could be any aspect of the mission. We said the mission is to release divine love, to feed it. The mission and the ministry are everything, to be a sign. What I'm saying is this: God is not, he's given us the mission and the ministry to do, don't get me wrong. But the first calling is to him to be a son. It's about sonship. It's not about being a sign. In Eugene Peterson's book, I had mentioned it last week, where he takes the first temptation and looks at it as the temptation to become a consumer instead of one who is actually feeding people spiritually and physically. The second one he takes as entertainment. He speaks specifically to church leaders, but this can be for any of us, to lose our focus on releasing love towards others and making it more entertaining for them. What Eugene Peterson's talking about are ministries that are built on presenting the best show in town on a Sunday morning and doing whatever they've got to do. I don't care what it is. We'll park your car for you. I don't care. We'll do whatever we've got to do to put somebody in that pew and to make sure they come back every week. And that generally starts to run in the area of entertainment. I remember one of the trips we came back from the States, I was invited to preach at a church, but something happened to me that year in England. It became so clear to me, some different things that could be different in the church, let's put it that way, in our corporate gatherings. I just remember sitting in the front row of a large church and having the pastor, hey, how you doing? How's everything? Coming out, and I'm watching this. It was this huge production that we don't even think anything of unless you come from a setting and a group of people that are not looking for a show. I remember once in Swanage, and the way we had the room set up, it looked like a cafe is what it looked like. It had a different kind of atmosphere to begin with. So I was just walking around and saying, okay, what would you like today? I mean, great sermon or great worship or whatever. And about a half dozen people shared different things and said, oh, I'd like this. And somebody said, well, I'd like that. And I was writing them down. And I just said, well, that's really a shame because this ain't a flippin' restaurant. We came here to worship God. I'm not here to provide for you everything you want, but we're here together today to provide everything that God wants. I set them up and they knew it, so everybody got a laugh out of it and everything. Cool. But the whole point was we can get like that. We can get like, number one, becoming a consumer. I didn't get anything out of it today. What did you put into it? I'm just wondering. because that's really what it's about, not what I got out of it. God's faithful. He feeds us all the time. That's not a problem, getting anything out of it. That's not a problem. Eugene Peterson's saying the other part of it is you're so busy putting out a show. God left a long time ago. He booked. He couldn't even stand it. But we're all having a great time, and it's very entertaining, but nothing's going on other than entertainment. You might as well go home and watch television.